Dear professors, our subject is the effect of financial markets on banks' loan portfolio change in Turkey. My name is Fatih KAYHAN, Associate Professor at Kredi University, Department of Finance and Banking. I prepared this study together with dear professors Gökhan IŞIL from Marmara University, Department of Banking, and Esra, ERİK, AKYOL, Assistant Professor from Kültür University, Department of Banking and Insurance. As an introduction, we can start with some statements that considering that the highest share in Turkish financial markets belongs to the banking industry and that the financial intermediation function is carried out to an important degree by the banking sector, it's inevitable that banks, which are the most important actors in these markets, have also significant effects on the economy. Banks make great contributions to the economy through their intermediary functions within the financial system. With this intermediary function that they undertake, banks continue their intermediary activities around the axis of collecting deposits and granting loans, making loans by bringing together those with excess funds and those with fund deficits. Increases or decreases in interest rates directly affect bank loan volume and exchange rates and indirectly affect stock exchange through the demand for money for speculative purposes. In this study, firstly, we should give some brief explanations about the main topics of the study. First of all, research question of our paper is that whether financial market returns have significant impact on the share of loan portfolio of deposit banks. Our scope is limited to commercial banks in Turkey. We know that commercial banks are also called as deposit banks. They are conventional banks. Loans volume is considered as dependent variable. By loans volume, we also mean credits portfolio. CPI index, consumer price index, US dollar TL parity, BIST 100 index, which is the stock market index in Turkey, and the deposit return, TL, monthly deposit return, and all bond index are taken into account as explanatory variables. The contribution of our study to the literature is that this study sheds light on literature on the relation between financial market returns and the share of loans made by commercial banks, where there seems scarce literature. When we look at the recent figures on banking in Turkey, we see that total assets of banking industry is very close to gross domestic product. This indicates that, as we see on this screen, on this figure, there is a slight decrease in the ratio, but despite this fact, Turkish financial system is still, as proxied by banking industry, is still very close to gross domestic product of the country. So this indicates the relative significance of banking industry in Turkey. Let us look at recent figures on banking in Turkey. According to official report, Basic Indicators Report by Banking Regulatory and Supervisory Agent of Turkey, as of September 2023, leading indicators of Turkish banking industry were as follows. Totally, we have 60 banks operating in Turkey. 35 of them are commercial deposit banks, 17 development and investment banks, and 8 participation banks we have. The number of branches is around 11,000 and number of personnel is about 200,000. In total assets, the share of loans, securities, and required reserves realized at 56% and 16% and 9% in succession. When we look at total liabilities, we see that deposits has the greatest share, which is 66%. The share of payables to banks is 2%, and the funds from repo is 3%. In the profit and loss statements, we see that interest income realized as 1,614 billion TL, and interest expense realized as 1,137 billion TL. Net income of Turkish banking sector is 439 billion TL. As of September 2023, return on equity, which is the important ratios in financial analysis, ROE of Turkish banking sector was higher in public and domestic private and foreign banks group in comparison with the same period of the previous year. When we look at another rate, which is important in financial analysis, it is the ROA, return on assets ratio. We see that it was higher as to the same period of the previous year. When we take into account the September 2023 figures. Let us look at briefly the recent figures on banking in Turkey. According to official report by BRSA, as of September 2023, balance sheet of Turkish banking industry is as follows. As you see on the screen, we have asset totals, and we have the change, previous quarter change and previous end of year change. You see the very important increase in items, but we should put in mind that there's a high inflation in Turkey. That's why these great differences, rate of change, should be taken into account by considering the high level of inflation. We see that there is a 50% increase in deposits. And when we look at the very important item in assets, loans, credits, we see that there's a 40% increase in loans. After these figures, recent figures on banking in Turkey, we can look at the literature review briefly. We have taken into account and we covered the important studies in this field. And if you look at the conclusions for the first article, we see that there is a strong causal relationship has been identified between bank loans and economic growth, real exchange rate change, and real interest rates and net interest margins. It has been found that macroeconomic volatilities are largely effective in the dramatic increase in non-performing loans. This is carried out in sub-Saharan Africa. And the methodology we see the causality and the Fuselo panel-based prediction models, and we have the variables that are employed in the study. And we have some other literature studies. Actually, I don't want to go into details, but we can look at the last one, Baş Ankara in a recent study upon Turkey for the period between 2005 and 2017, they employed RDD analysis methods, and they take into account some variables: real effective exchange rate, commercial loan interest rate, banking sector credit volume, and inflation, non-performing loans. And they have found out that there's a direct relationship between real effective exchange rate, commercial loan interest rate, banking sector loan volume, inflation, and non-performing loans. In both the short and long term, if the real effective rate increases, non-performing loan also increase. Yes. As a data in economic analysis that we carried out, we have used monthly rates, monthly return rates of interest, foreign exchange, and BIS indices, and their effects on monthly loan portfolio of deposit banks is investigated using regression analysis. Regression analysis performed with the help of monthly data for the period between January 2005 and February 2023. In the regression model created, the effects of the market variables on the share of deposit banks by using the dependent variable of loan amount of the deposit banks and independent variables of monthly deposit return TL, net amount, and also US dollar TL exchange rate parity, and all bond index, and BIST 100 index, and CPI index is examined. Data description. When we look at data description, in this study, we have long-term and short-term effects of deposit return index, US dollar TL parity, CPI index, BIST 100 index, and all bond index data on the percentage share of banks' credit volume were discussed for the period 2005 and 2022 period for Turkey. Data is on a monthly basis, as we said. Data is retrieved from the official website of Central Bank of the Republic of Turkey and Banking Regulation Supervision Agency and BIST Istanbul. And table which provides data description analysis conducted via eView's 13 edition statistics program. And we have variables and definition. We have these variables and notations in the regression analysis and the type of variable. You see that the share of loan volume of deposit banks is indicated as this notation, and it's dependent variable, and we know these are the explanatory variables. And we have a correlation matrix for explanatory variables. And upon regression analysis, our findings indicate that when net deposit amount, notate this as a MVD, variable increases by 1%, the share amount, let's see, the share amount variable, this dependent variable increases by 5%, 9. And when the US TL variable increases by 1%, our dependent variable increases, decreases by 3.6%. Let us remember that this dependent variable indicates the share of loan volume of deposit banks. Another way of saying, we are trying to find how much deposit banks a loan volume changes, because we have two type of banks: deposit banks, participation banks, and investment banks. When we look at the total loan volume, we are trying to find how the share of credit volume, loan volume of deposit banks increases or decreases within the entire loan volume in the banking industry. And the other findings, you see the effect of CPI and BIST 100 and all bond index, this is bond index upon the our dependent variable share of loans by deposit index. And we are coming to the conclusion that increase in monthly net deposits, monthly net deposit return have a positive and significant impact on the share of loan portfolio as far as deposit banks in Turkey is concerned. This is in line with the market expectations. Why? Due to the fact that increase in deposits resulting from deposit returns will cause deposit holders to have more deposit in number and volume with the commercial banks. In return, what we have, in return, deposit banks would change these deposit amounts into loans, channeling these savings into loans. Let's comment in this way. And that is, banks shall make more loans to clients, individuals or commercials, as economic units. That's why, comparatively speaking, we can say that the share of deposit banks in loan portfolio market increase more than other banks, other banking types, participation banks in the entire banking industry. Increase in all bond returns also has similar impact on the share of loan portfolio deposit banks. On the other hand, increase in US dollar TL parity or CPI index have negative impact on the share that we're talking about. Given the significant link between financial market indicators and loan portfolio on banks, while making policy changes in an effort to increase and decrease the impact of loan portfolio, that is credit volume, the significant effects of change in the returns of financial markets indicators benchmark should be taken into account by the financial authorities. We are coming into that conclusion and recommendation. So we have employed some references, some academic studies. These are our references, and we have finished our presentation. I would like to thank all the participants of this Congress and all those dear academicians that listen to our study. Thank you very much.